Dear God, the very houses seem asleep. There's an excerpt from the poem Sonnet composed upon Westminster Bridge. William Wordsworth is the poet. I am Jamain Hatton. This is the recap. Today is the 12th day of August in the year 2017. This 12th edition of the recap will focus on sonnet composed upon Westminster Bridge that was written in the year 1802, September 3rd. Now, William Wordsworth is actually an Englishman. He spent most of his days in the English countryside where he developed a love for nature. He describes nature as being pure joy and pure passion. He describes living in the countryside as being peace and tranquility unmatched. He was born in the year 1770 and died in the middle of the 19th century in the year 1850. Now, William Wordsworth wrote largely about nature in the countryside, but in this poem we see a deviation from that, where he actually talks about nature in the city. Now, Westminster Bridge is a bridge in England that overlooks their parliament, I think. And here he was, just before the sun rose, talking about how peaceful the world appeared, how peaceful the place appeared. So let's go straight into Sonnet Composed Upon Westminster Bridge by William Wordsworth. Sonnet Composed Upon Westminster Bridge, William Wordsworth. Earth has not anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. The city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning, silent, bare. Ships, towers, domes, theatres, and temples lie open unto the fields, and to the sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Never did sun more beautifully steep in its first splendor, valley, rock, or hill. Ne'er saw I, never felt a calm so deep. The river glideth at its own sweet will. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty art is lying still. Earth has not anything to show more fair. If there is any one word in any poem that I hate, it will be the word fair at the end of this sentence here. Uh, I'm trying to not be all Black Lives Matter on you, but the word fair doesn't talk about being afraid, but it talks about being beautiful. I think you can see where I'm getting with this here. He's saying, with what he's looking at, with what William is looking at, there is nothing more beautiful than this sight. That's what he's trying to explain to us there. And he's trying to mix the word fair with being beautiful. I'm quite sure you see what my point is. But nonetheless, let's move on. He says, dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight. That part is big to me. It means what? It tells us that we are boring. The persons who can pass by such a sight and not admire how beautiful it is boring, is dead within their soul. So he's saying there, dull would he be of soul, a sight so touching in its majesty. He's saying that the sight is has the ability to wake up even your soul. It's majestic. The word majestic talks about how personal it is, how glorified it is. It talks about how splendor, how much splendor this sight was really. Then we go into the simile. The city now doth like a garment, wear the beauty of the morning. And then we see a little personification there, the wear part. But let's look at this simile. This comparing the manner in which the morning is beautiful to the way it settles over the city. So it's talking about the beauty of the morning settling over the city, like if you were putting on a coat and how the coat will settle over your body. That's what they're trying to show us there. So the beauty of the morning settles over the city, make it appear so beautiful, make it appear as though it was a garment on someone's body. And he's talking about here, if you look at it, the beauty of the morning, silent and bare. It's important to note what he's saying there. Note what he's saying. He's saying that it's silent and bare. At just that instant, that early morning, it appears to be silent, bare, as though nothing is going on, as though it's peaceful, as though it's innocent. But he's talking as well in the next line: ships, towers, domes, theaters, and temples. Why is he talking about all of those things there? He's trying to show us how civilized this city was. He's trying to show us how this city, during the day, during the hot sun, how much it's powering its way to civilization. And at this point, you want to think about God's Grandeur by Manley Hopkins and try to compare these two poems here. He's standing there early in the morning, and despite all the ships that might be there during the day, the towers who might be making noises and might be uh, creating havoc, during this time, during the early morning period, it's so quiet, it's peaceful, trying to show us that despite how catastrophic the human beings can be, the world, for some reason, at early times of the day, is peaceful. That's what he's trying to show us here. Open onto the fields. Then he goes on to talk about all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. So this line here is telling us really how much the air seems to be pure. All right, smokeless. Remember, during the day, people will be powering their way to civilization. Factories will be will be pushing tons of carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And at this point here, this early morning point here, there seems to be no air going into the atmosphere, no smoke going into the atmosphere. It seems pure. That's what he's trying to show us here. Early in the morning, the impact, the negative impact of man cease to affect nature. Personification where human qualities are given to non-human. We start by saying, "Never did the sun more beautifully steep." It's personifying the sun to mean that the sun is like a boy, and that boy is now rising, and it's touching everything in its path. That's valley, rock, hill, and that there is like a surprise. He's saying there's no beauty that can compare to this here, this first splendor: sun touching valley, sun touching rock, sun touching hill. And he says, never saw I, never felt. He has never seen, he has never felt a calm so deep. And you see that exclamation point there. And that is very important. The exclamation, I hope you can see it, or you could have sent it in my voice when I was reading the poem. But that exclamation shows us how deep, how much of excitement he's feeling, how much in awe he is with the beauty of nature. A calm so deep. Alright? So shows us how peaceful that environment is. He says, "A river glideth at its own sweet will." Again, personification there is giving the quality of a man. Think about a man in a boat that is actually gliding down a river, or moving down a river, moving smoothly down a river, or you may be moving back and forth. That is the image that is painted here for us, that the river has the ability to glide at its own sweet will. That is telling us that the river, this guy is standing over this bridge, or on this bridge over this river, and he's looking down at this river, and this river seems to be enjoying itself. It appears as though it's happy that men are not awake yet to pollute it. If you get the idea I'm saying, it's as though the river is happy that man doesn't exist at this instant here. Alright, so it goes on to talk about dear God and that exclamation there again to show the excitement, to show the AWE, and goes on to say the houses seem asleep. Of course, the houses cannot possibly be asleep, so that's another personification there. But again, it shows us how calm the place was, how peaceful that place was. So it tells us that in the normal day or at noon probably how busy houses will be, it will be almost crazy. All right, so it goes on to show us that this at this point of the morning here, even the houses seem to not be causing a scene. All right, and it goes on to talk about the mighty heart is lying still. Now what I want you to think about here, you should think about the engine of commerce, probably the factories. During the day, they will be powering. They will be powering their way to civilization. And heart. Think about heart. Heart literally means a beating machine, a beating organ that is responsible for life. So the mighty heart of this city here, that commerce that might be very busy during the day, might be very busy creating pollution or so on, that organ there is lying still. In the city, the thing that is responsible for the most civilization in that city, at that instant of the morning, is silent, is still, is not yet awoken. All right, so that is the idea I want you to take away from there. Is there anything else I want to talk about? The dear God is acknowledging the reverence of God. It's acknowledging the presence of God in the situation as well. So that there was the explanation of Sonnet composed upon Westminster Bridge, William Wordsworth. Compare this poem to a poem that talks about nature, talks about places, and talks about man versus nature. Think about God's grandeur. When you think about God's grandeur, remember generations have trod, telling us how much generations upon generation have tried to damage the beauty of the world. And here we are seeing that William Wordsworth is admiring the beauty of the world, the beauty of this city when it's early in the morning to show us that really there might be a similarity. In that poem, nature seems to be replacing itself or replenishing itself. And here, at the start of the day, everything appears beautiful, everything appears peaceful. So, a similarity there. But in that poem, obviously, you could have seen men damaging the earth. Here, there is not a presence of man directly, but we can see that when man is not around, how peaceful it actually is. I can do a little comparison of them, a more in-depth comparison of the two together, and probably show you how to write that. Hit me up and let me know if you want to see that or want to be updated of that. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know what you think, subscribe so you can get updates on future poems. You are with me, Jamain Hatton. Goodbye.